I give Naruto a lot of shit. Be it on Twitter or YouTube, I am very quick to criticize the direction the series took, and rightly so in my opinion. However, Naruto was my favorite series of all time for the better part of a decade, and I still find a lot of appreciation for its earlier sections. Actually, up until the end of the Pain arc, Naruto is a pretty solid work, with 3 specific points of greatness. While I probably will talk about all of them at some point, today I wanted to discuss and look at the first one of them. Naruto's first major arc, the Land of Waves, or as I prefer to call it, the Zabuza Arc. But firstly, what even is a story? Broad question, I know, there are only about 1 million possible answers to it. But one possible answer is questions. A story is, in a way, just a series of questions, with every development adding new questions. A plot often moves by looking at established facts and asking questions about them, which then get answered as the plot progresses, only to be replaced by more questions. These can be as straight up literal as who killed the victim in a whodunit, or as abstracted as what does it mean to be alive? Through this, evolutions and developments in the plot are catalyzed and pushed. Additionally, while answers might be provided, an author can and will and should often choose to have both the questions and their answers be only implied and or ambiguous, because that gives a section of the text a certain depth and a multiplicity of meaning, which means that we can have a lot of interpretations about it. In essence, fiction can be seen as a continuous cycle of asking questions, presenting them, and letting the story's events and the reader's interpretations, minds, and knowledge of storytelling come up with the answers. With that in mind, let's check out the Zabuza Arc. It's the very first major story arc in Naruto, way before it became the global phenomenon we all know today. You know the story, so I'm not gonna go into it in too much detail. Naruto and his posse are tasked with escorting a bridge builder back to his hometown so he can build a bridge. This mission is complicated by the local warlord of the area, who sees the building of that bridge as an attempt to weaken his iron grip over that land's law and economy. To prevent this, he hires Zabuza Momochi, legendary swordsman and cold assassin, to end the builder's life, which throws him into conflict with our gang. This arc is about as classic as it gets. It's the first major story of one of the biggest manga of all time, having been read and watched by literally millions of people. It offers 2 absolute banger fights, it shows us the determination of Naruto, it shows us Sasuke's frail facade, Kakashi's badassery, and actual capability, and even gives us our first glimpse of the Sharingan, a little power that will totally not become important and overused in the future. These are all aspects that make this arc enjoyable to watch, absolutely, but today I would like to dig a bit deeper. Considering the opening of this video, the first step in analyzing a story arc would be to try and find which questions it asks and which questions it answers. These questions can basically exist on what you can imagine as a spectrum, from straightforward stuff to philosophical bullshit. Normally, a beginning arc of a story will mostly consist of very straightforward questions like who is this guy, and what can this guy do, and why should we care? Since they need to establish the world and characters first and foremost, before they can start questioning more fundamental concepts. You can't really worry about the validity of humanity if we don't know what these characters are yet. Here, however, the Zabuza arc has a pretty cool advantage, as it's simultaneously the first arc, but also not the first arc. Let me explain. Before the Zabuza arc, Naruto spends some time establishing the cast and the world in low-stress environments, during a segment that's not quite a full arc, but also not a side story. The Zabuza arc is then the first major story arc, but because the relevant cast and the world are already somewhat established, this arc now has the freedom to not have to solely focus on getting the basics down, instead being free to bring up more introspective and, frankly, more interesting questions. And that is exactly what it does. If we return to our spectrum, we can essentially chart what exactly the Zabuza arc asks. On the straightforward end, we have questions a first arc should generally produce, like, are our heroes as capable as they say? And of course, can our heroes fulfill their duty? However, if we move towards the middle, we get into inquiries like, is the ninja system not as functional and good as it seems? And what are the repercussions of such a violent lifestyle? Finally, at the philosophical bullshit end, we reach maybe the most fundamental question of the Zabuza arc. What does our humanity mean in times of violence and suffering, and is suppressing that humanity possible and worth it? Alright, but why do these questions matter? Well, because through them, Naruto very quickly and efficiently forges its ideological identity as a work. The Zabuza Arc immediately puts many of the pre-established concepts of the series in questions, starting of course with the relatively straightforward and grounded question of whether or not the ninja system isn't kind of stupid. During our first few chapters in Naruto's world, it seems relatively lighthearted and silly. Yes, of course, there are moments of sober darkness, but overall, it just seems like a goofy shonen world with few outlying bad dudes and sad events. Obviously, there are things like the attack of the Nine Tails and that one dude in episode 1 who tries to kill Naruto, but those seem more like outliers, exceptions. They don't seem to define the world. However, this is fundamentally a world where child soldiers and power dominance conflicts are very much the norm, and this arc's depiction of ninja reflects that. Ruthless monopolitan warlords who enforce their reign by ways of hired thugs, entire villages that train children to murder their best friends, death and bloodshed wherever you look. By depicting the world in this way, the Zabuza arc asks, hold on, isn't the ninja system kinda fucked up? And immediately answers it with, yeah lol. This question and its answer is important because they dispel any notions of this fictional universe being in any way or shape or form functional and harmonic. This is an important step, since much of Naruto's run is dedicated to ponder the many issues that plague humanity and their never-ending cycle of pain, and how to stop that. The seeds of pain, of the Ninja War arc, of that entire ideology is all sown here, in a small dispute over a bridge. But the real meat and potatoes of this arc reveal themselves once we fully commit to the philosophical bullshit side of things. What does humanity mean when your entire existence is to be used for violence? Can we, as humans, really suppress ourselves into unfeeling tools of the machinery we call the world? These are the more introspective questions that this arc asks, and it asks them via its two most central characters, Zabuza and Haku. Having spent most of their lives as killers, hired or otherwise, this duo is very much a product of the warring, hateful world that Naruto presents. But almost more striking is the peculiar relationship these two have towards their lives and to each other. Haku has been continuously persecuted and hunted for his unique family ice jutsu, a powerful Kekkei Genkai that many in the scarred land of water feared as bringing about more war and suffering. Having lost his family and home at the hands of mass hysteria, he was left purposeless until a certain ninja adopted him, not out of love, but out of an outspoken desire to use him for his power. However, for Haku, this was all he wanted, for his existence to have some sort of meaning. He could finally live for a dream, even if it was someone else's. It was a feeling of being necessary, a purpose which he fulfilled all the way up until the bitter end, where he lunged himself into a lethal blow to protect the life of the ninja that had taken him in. That ninja was, of course, Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the mist. A malicious and ruthless killer from as young an age as of 9, Zabuza thrived in the war-torn reality of the ninja world, making a name for himself as an incredibly efficient and deadly assassin. In pursuit of his goal to overthrow his home nation, he seeks out funds, earning a fortune one kill at a time. He is also, uncharacteristically for many villains, very blunt and honest about his outlook on his collaborators. They are tools, means to an end, merely to be used and discarded. He himself views life as a continuous cycle of using and being used, a cynical, opportunistic attitude. And it is this attitude that he, of course, displays for all of the time that he is with Haku. However, as you all know, this reveals itself to have simply been a farce, as Haku's death genuinely distraughts him, causing him to finally accept his worldview as false, and to understand that no matter how much he tells himself that humans and he himself are just tools, that he still valued Haku's company, right before he dies. The reason these two stories and the question they raise are so important is because they immediately set up a few very important things about Naruto. For one, they establish the underlying hypocrisy and facades that most of the people living in this world put up. It's a common and consistent theme in Naruto that most of what people overtly say and show is incongruous and inconsistent with their actual true feelings and dispositions. This all starts with the reveal of Zabuza's true feelings, and tells us, the readers and viewers, to not take the extreme and edgy ideologies of many of the story's characters at face value. Except when we have to, but whatever, we won't talk about that yet. Additionally, it introduces the core struggle that all ninja have to go through, the struggle to rationalize their violent lifestyle with the emotions inherent to humanity. In Zabuza, we get to see someone who is completely and utterly immersed into that violence and conflict, and someone who very genuinely thrives in it. This would initially present a reality in which, yes, it is very possible and very probable for humans to seamlessly become living weapons. But this itself opens up a can of worms for Naruto and his pals, namely that, if Zabuza is truly the image of a ninja who has fully accepted his place in the world, then doesn't that mean that he is the standard which all aspiring ninja, including our spunky blonde little shit, are eventually gonna adapt and mimic? Is a ruthless killer with no regard for human dignity and life truly what Naruto's efforts are ultimately gonna turn him into? Well, as you all know, that ends up not being the truth. In his final moments, Zabuza understands that no matter how much suffering he both endured and inflicted, how much snarky, nihilistic cynicism he throws out at any opportunity, how much he tries to truly be the demon of the mist, he can never really change, truly change, what he fundamentally is: a human being. In losing Haku, he feels a genuine human bond be severed, an emotional pain that is incongruous with his idea of people always being tools and weapons. Not only is this important in informing both us and Naruto that, no, Zabuza is not the standard and end goal of ninjahood, but also to present a very central concept within all of Naruto as a series: humanity's inevitable need for connections. No one, not even someone born and bred as a monster, can escape the fact that we humans instinctively seek human bonds and relationships, and that, even when we tell ourselves that those bonds are purely opportunistic, we still rely on them for support, comfort, and familiarity. Just like Haku sought a place where he belonged, so too do we all look for places and people that fit us. And if even a genuine, born demon inevitably ends up dying a human, then that implies that everyone has the potential to recognize and appreciate human bonds and their necessity, which would also imply a universal yearning for peace and cooperation, which may seem ludicrous in a world like Naruto, but is pretty much what the rest of the series ends up being about. Everyone wants peace, essentially, but achieving it is just a matter of communicating and understanding beyond the nihilism, the cynicism, and the historical pettiness that separates us. And that is one hell of a claim to make in your story's first major story arc. It is a brilliant thematic foundation that opens up a literal ass mountain of compelling and interesting directions to take it, and it truly cements Zabuza and Haku as one of the best antagonists of any series I've ever read. Essentially, we have an arc that introduces monsters and then humanizes them as a tool and vessel to depict the inherent humanity within every single character Naruto will introduce in the future. Zabuza is arguably one of the worst people we can meet in a story. He's a relentless murderer with no regard for human life, and even he, at the end of his days, cries over losing someone dear to him. It's a beautiful way to humanize everyone living in Naruto's world and really sell this idea that peace is the natural state the world should be in, and that it is simply yoinked out of that due to pettiness, war, crime, historical nihilism and cynicism and all that stuff. This insanely intimate, small-scale example works as the elemental building block of the entire narrative of Naruto and imbues it with so much potential right off the gate. And whether or not Naruto ended up living up to that potential, that is up to you. But for now, this is enough from me. Thank you so much for watching, take care, be safe in these confusing times, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.